This was more like a, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? Like, why am I being punished? Like, what did I do? Like, I'm a good person. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, that was really my big question. Like, why? Why is this happening to me? I'm doing everything right. I haven't done anything wrong. Like, what's going on? But again, I think it's that optimism. Like, obviously at the time I was asking why. And now I feel like, well, it is a blessing in disguise. Because if I hadn't had that thing happen to me, I'd probably just still be a solopreneur. Maybe I'd be making 7 figures, but I'd be working 24/7 and being miserable and, all that stuff. And if it wasn't for this thing that happened to me, who knows where I'd be? It forced me, whether I was ready or not, to make those changes. And like you said, you also learn.
Well, today's going to be a special episode because I have my really good friend of over 20 years. We first met when he was in-house general counsel for our family businesses. And then he's gone on to start his own law firm and be a anti-lawyer for syndicators. And anyone who knows him just loves him as an attorney, but also as a friend. And so, Mauricio, I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Well, I'm excited to be here, especially talking to you. So I'm super pumped about this.
Yes. Well, we've been through a lot of life together in different ways, a lot of business building, a lot of failures, a lot of lessons learned. And I know that in your pursuit of scaling your law firm, you had quite a few challenges.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you could share the story about how you went from being in-house general counsel to the courage to start your own law firm to a health scare that then changed into something more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I was general counsel for, we say the real estate guys, it really was their development companies and their businesses. Real estate guys, obviously the podcast and everything like that. But I left the firm and went to work for Robert and Russ and your dad, Russ, and did all their legal work, right? But after a couple of years, I just started to help other members of the community, at the real estate guys community, sort of on the side. I'm like, just kind of helping them out as I was general counsel. And that kind of little, I don't want to call it a side hustle. It was obviously with the guys' permission and awareness. And that kind of grew and grew and grew a little bit, just slowly. It was kind of like I said, a side hustle. But it got to the point where I decided, hey, maybe I should start my own firm, right? And not really, it wasn't like I wanted to become an entrepreneur. It wasn't like I realized back then I had entrepreneurial spirit or goal. I come from a very employee family, and everybody's an employee. Everybody has employee mindset, so to speak. But it just made sense to me to start my own firm because I'd already kind of incubated some of these smaller relationships. And so I made the jump. It was in 2000 and I think I started the firm technically in 2006, but I didn't really do it until 2007 or 2008 where I really officially moved over there. And so I kept the guys as obviously a VIP client. So we kind of just changed the relationship. Instead of being in-house counsel, I was more like outside counsel. So I had a little bit of income coming from there, and then just continue to develop the relationships with their members. And back then it was a smaller scale. They were doing, asset protection stuff. So I was helping them set up LLCs and help them with that thing. There was a few syndicators, right? That were raising capital. So I remember how little I was charging some of these guys. Because again, it was just me. I was literally a one-man show. It was me in my office. And when you start a firm like that, you basically take whatever business you can get, whatever puts food on the table, you're taking. So if you needed me to review a contract, done. If you wanted me to do this, done. I would just do whatever, right? And then over the years, it kind of developed into, okay, the asset protection business grew quite a bit actually. And then the syndication was growing a little bit, but it allowed me to sort of just really narrow the focus down to those two. And so for many years, I was just doing asset protection and syndication work. And then I remember very explicitly and I remember this because it was when my second daughter, Alessandra, was born. We were in Chicago and I was working out of a library in Chicago. And I just did a little math, back of napkin math, to see how much revenue I was generating from the asset protection world and how much revenue I was generating from the syndication world. And I realized that the numbers were flipped. I was spending 2/3 of my time doing asset protection, but it only generated 1/3 of the revenue. And I was spending 1/3 of the time on the syndication, but it was generating 2/3 of the revenue. Mm-hmm. And so I made the jump to just just do exclusively syndication, again, 7-8 years ago now, whenever, all those boards, I think 2016, if my math is correct. And, but what's interesting, I think this is where your audience can get some value, is I then grew that business just brute force, like just me. Then every so often I would hire, a paralegal or an assistant, a virtual assistant, but generally speaking, it was me. And you can grow a business with brute force to a certain level. I would say that number for me, and again, it depends on the business. I'm in the service business, obviously. So I was still trading time for dollars. So there's a capacity of how many deals I can do. There's only so many hours in a day. But I think I did it. If you worked like almost nonstop in the weekends, like you can get that up to 7 figures, which is what I did. So I grew that thing from zero, whatever, when I started, to 7 figures of income in about 10 years, I think it was, because it was right before my health scare. So when I did the health scare, we were doing okay. And then to your point, I got sick. And this is one of the lessons I think that people can learn, is that the problem with what I was doing, which was I was basically a solopreneur, right? I was doing everything. I had that solopreneur problem and mentality, which is only I could do it. I'm the one that does it best. Nobody else can do it as good as I do. Clients want to talk to me. Clients don't want to talk to somebody else. Like all the issues that I'm sure a lot of your clients have. I had all of those. As you know, I'm a control freak, and it's just very difficult for me to let go of things. I have a very particular way of wanting to do things, as you know, and nobody's going to do it the way I want to do it. And I'm sure I think that's true for a lot of entrepreneurs. But unfortunately unfortunately, I do think looking back at it, it was like one of the biggest blessings that I've ever had. But I got really sick. I have Crohn's disease already. It's an autoimmune disease that really affects my intestinal system, my stomach. And I went in for kind of routine surgery. There's a way to kind of bypass. I did a little resection of my intestines, not to get too graphics, but they essentially just cut out all the blockage in the intestines and then retie it. And it's usually a pretty straightforward procedure. It's actually it's not an in-house, but it's arthroscopic. So just poke a couple holes in there. They told me maybe 3 days, 4 days in the hospital, and then boom, you're gone. And I remember specifically, it was kind of a slow period. I don't know why. This was back in June or July. And it was a slow period. So I'm like, I'm kind of on top of things, which is rare. Like I'm up to speed. I can get away with 5 days in the hospital and then maybe a week or 2 of recovery. I think I can pull this off. So I went ahead and did that. And, the surgery didn't go well. So I had a botched surgery, essentially. I guess my intestines were so inflamed and so stretched out that the staples that they used to connect the resection, they didn't hold. And so my intestines just essentially burst inside of me, and all of that gunk just got into my body, right, everywhere else. And so I'll never forget, it was July 4th of 2018. I just had an excruciating pain. Middle of the night, I literally woke up and I was cursing at the nurse because I was, she kept telling me, it's just gas. It is what it is. And the medication is not going to help you. It's just gas. And I just kept, and me, I curse here and there, but I certainly not to strangers and third parties. I'm usually pretty respectful with people. And so I was literally cursing to this poor nurse on the other side of I'm like, give me the effing morphine. Like I need the morphine. I'm in freaking pain. And finally the doctor, I'm throwing up. I remember too, I was throwing up. I was like all kinds of nonsense. And then the doctor on call finally made it in the middle of the night. And he said, give this guy some morphine. This is not gas. And that's when they went in and did a CAT scan and saw that the whole thing had ruptured. So they went in literally for emergency surgery. Just at that point had to slice me right open to kind of, I kind of envisioned it as obviously retying that, but also then having to suction out all of the gunk everywhere. And it was rough because, they go in there and they do the surgery, which is at that point major surgery. Right now they're literally slicing you open. And then they'd go back and do the CAT scan a few days later. I'm like, no, we didn't get it all. There's still some gunk in there, so we have to go get it. So we went in the second time, and then probably a week later or something, or 10 days later, another CAT scan. It's like, nope, like one more time. And so we ended up going in 3 times in for that particular surgery. And over the course of a couple months that I was in the hospital, it was literally 10 different procedures, not all that serious, but some level of surgery that I had to do. And I was septic because of all that. And so I didn't realize this until after the fact, but actually my wife Heidi told me this, that they said that I had about a 30% chance of death when I went into that because of all the gunk that gone in and I'd gotten septic. That's not a good thing to happen. So, and it's all a blur at this point, to be honest with you. I remember obviously being there. It was pretty, but I don't remember the details. I don't remember Heidi will tell me every so often, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of remember the look on my parents' face. They were really worried, but I'm also going in for surgery. So any parent would be worried anyway, but it was because I was literally, there's like 30% chance I might, which is a pretty high percentage. Yeah. But all that to say is, and it took me, I was in the hospital for 2 months straight. And then I was in and out of the hospital till the end of the year. So probably 6 or 7 months. I lost all of my weight. I was down to bones and skin, as you remember. Mm-hmm. I got down to 113 pounds and then got stuck. Even after I got out of there, I got up to about 120, where I maintained for a long time. And that's when I kind of got back into things. And my first event, I remember seeing, I think it was a Real Estate Guys event too, but also a Brad Summerk event. I was 120 pounds. Heidi was like, do you want to have a stool up there to sit? Because I don't know if you have enough energy to walk around. But I had to get back into the thick of things, because my revenues, because I'm a single person, single point failure, solopreneur, when we don't work and we don't have the systems in place and the processes and the teams, as you teach, our revenue goes to zero. Yeah. And that's what happened to us. I mean, or to me, or to us as a family. But our revenues went to zero because I'm in the hospital, right? I'm in the hospital for 2 months, then I'm recovering, and I the whole other story there too. They gave me these basically the opium pills they gave me, these drugs they gave me that I got addicted to. So then I had that problem as well. After that, I was kind of addicted to this drug called Norco, these pills, which really didn't do anything spectacular other than to make me feel normal. Like I was always tired and exhausted, and then I'd pop this pill and I'd feel normal, which was nice, but I couldn't get off of it. So I actually checked in myself for a 1 week rehab center. Which was like living, it's like literally, right. It actually, this reminds me a little bit about it. It was like a hotel room that I was just there for a week, and I worked the whole time I was there, and it was fine, but I still had to go get some professional help to get it wean off of those narcotics. But long story short is that when I came out of that, I just realized I can't have this happen again. Like if I get hit by a bus again or something happens, I cannot be in a situation where I put my family at risk again like this. I mean, luckily we had some reserves, and that good lesson there too. Get to have some reserves in your thing. So if something like this does happen, you're covered. And so, but I said, look, I made a decision. Like I've got to build a real business. I can't be a solopreneur. I've got to be in a situation where something like that happens again, it doesn't matter. Like I could be gone for 6 months or 3 months, and the business will continue to run. Maybe it won't grow, maybe it won't be whatever, but at least it won't collapse and go down to zero. And so that's what I started to do back then. So, built it back up. I mean, again, it's not like my revenues went to zero, but once I got back in the swing of things, clients came back. So I had, I wasn't starting from zero, but so built that back up. And again, I got to that $1 million mark again pretty quickly on brute force. And then you get to the next level, which is you have to start bringing in team members, right? And so I was fortunate enough to meet my now partner, Bethany, who you know well. And she was just a contract attorney for me. Like she was literally underneath my nose the whole time. I was actually working with another contract attorney and thought she may be the person to help me. And all along, Bethany was sort of this contract attorney, didn't know much about her. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this person, not only is she extremely talented, she used to run her own law firm. So she knows what it is to run a law firm. And she's like, I don't want to do all of the marketing and getting the clients and billing the clients and chasing money. It's like, I just want to do the work. And so that's what started this sort of this partnership, not too many years after I got sick. And that partnership has allowed us to scale, because I've been able to delegate, really. That's the kind of the lesson there. Like once you get to that first hurdle, which is the $1 million in my world, and for other people, it's 400,000, 500,000. For some others, it might be more. But at some point, you need more people, right? You need to be able to start delegating work so you can get more done with more people. And so whether that's probably an assistant, an executive assistant or an admin is probably a good first step, because that's probably the biggest leverage you're going to get. But at some point I brought in a partner, and we brought in lawyers, and we brought in paralegals, and we brought in a team that can get you to that next level, which is kind of where I am today. And I'll stop there before I go to the next level, because I know that was a mouthful.
I mean, I was there for all of this, and I remember when you came and you weighed 113 pounds, and seeing you like that is definitely scary. And I can only imagine how Heidi felt in the hospital.
Yeah, no, it's literally skin and bones. I mean, I don't think I could go any lower. Probably, I don't know. No. And it was fun though to watch, especially because I do a lot of social media. If you go back and look at all of my videos and stuff, especially on the YouTube, you'll see videos where I'm probably at about 120 because I came back at it about 120. I got stuck there for a while because I actually had an infection that they didn't know I had, and so it wasn't until they found the infection and removed it that I was able to start eating again. So I was stuck at 120 for a while. So there's like a few videos out there where I'm at 120, probably at the beginning of 2019. Even my voice has a hard time projecting. I just didn't have even the energy to get, I'm in front of the camera, but I'm like, it's like I'm really struggling to get words out. So, but then to see that progression from 120 to 130 to 150 to 180, I got to 200, I got to 220. No, I didn't get to 200. I got to about 208 or 210 or something. I remember that. So then I'm at the other extreme. So it's kind of fun to see. And then you can kind of pick. I'm like, oh, I like that one right there. That's a good, weight to have. So now I'm on my way back down to something more, normal or what I was before I got sick.
What I think is so fascinating about you, because I've watched your mindset change in 20 years, like you said, going from more of the employee mindset to more of the entrepreneurial mindset. And we obviously have had a lot of offline conversations about different life things and stuff. One thing that I've admired about you in this journey is what you make it mean or what you don't make it mean, right? So many people could look at being 113 and then 208 and judge that whole journey or judge that transformation or going from 7 figures to 0 and then having to do it again and almost like blaming themselves, blaming something external. But and I'm curious where this came from, because we've had conversations where you've basically said to me, well, a younger version of me thought that, but I'm wiser now. So I'm doing this. And I'm like, that's such a healthy perspective to have about our journey, even when there is tremendous pain, even when there's tremendous loss, even when you feel like betrayal has happened or things that you should have seen coming, you didn't. Like, how did you manage your psychology? And even when you're like having medications and things that are making your brain not even operate normally, like how did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I think I did consciously. I mean, I am into personal development, so I've gone through all the Tony Robbins stuff, the Darren Hardy stuff. I read a lot of books, and so I think it's just when you soak your mind with that kind of stuff. And then I'm watching video. Jim Rohn is a huge influence. I mean, I've watched all of Jim Rohn stuff, listened to all of his tapes. So you just kind of by osmosis get all that stuff. And I've always been an optimist. And that's why this one was a little weird too, because I've always been an optimist, and I've always felt like things have always worked out for me. And I'm not a religious person at all, and my wife Heidi is, and it's interesting because I'm not a religious person, but I always think of like, hey, the universe has always been good to me. And I always call it like the universe. Mm-hmm. I've never had maybe this is the reason I needed that. I've never had a struggle. Like I'm in a good place in life, but I didn't grow up in an abused family. I didn't grow up with these challenges. I didn't grow up dirt poor. I had a great childhood. My parents did well. We traveled a lot. Like I just had a really, again, things always worked out for me. So I've always had that optimism that it'll work out or what have you. And so this was more like wait a minute, what did I do wrong? Like, why am I being punished? Like, what did I do? Like, I'm a good person. At that point, we had both kids. So I'm a good father, a good husband. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, that was really my big question. Like, why? Mm-hmm. Why is this happening to me? I'm doing everything right. I haven't done anything wrong. Like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a questioning for me. Mm-hmm. But again, I think it's that optimism. Like, obviously at the time I was asking why, and now I feel like, well, it is a blessing in disguise. Because if I hadn't had that thing happen to me, I'd probably just still be a solopreneur. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'd be making 7 figures, but I'd be working 24/7 and being miserable and, all that stuff. And so I think it's just a perspective, and it's like, not to divert the story a little bit, but I do know, for example, you're another idea, and I get this a lot from the guys too. I mean, Robert and Russ, huge personal development people, and I've spent, obviously, to quote a personal development person, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I was spending a lot of time with Robert and Russ, so that's a good way to insert. And I remember that even them, they had a deal that went really south back in the day, 20 years ago, or whatever it was. But they always look at the positive, and the positive was that there was a new relationship. One of their partners came out of that. I think it's almost like it was the best thing that could have ever happened to us, because if it wasn't for that really negative thing, we wouldn't have met this person who's now had so much to do with our world. And I feel the same way. Like, if it wasn't for this thing that happened to me, who knows where I'd be? I know I wouldn't be where I am at. Maybe I'd have a couple of attorneys working for me, and but I'd still be working 24/7 and just being miserable. Yeah. So I do feel like it's a blessing in disguise. It forced me, whether I was ready or not, to make those changes. And like you say, you also learn. It's like, because even then, even when I got Bethany in and we were doing now multiple 7s, I mean, you're huge on processes and systems and all, and we had none of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even then we still didn't have that. So I do think that is the next step. Once you find the ability to leverage other people's expertise and delegate and divide and conquer, having processes and procedures will definitely get you to that next level. Now we have implemented, we're still actually, it's a work in progress. We have implemented more and more process and procedures. So I feel like we're in that spot now. And again, this is only my world. Other people's world might be different, but I feel like we're in that mid, multiple seven figures, and that works what we're doing now. But if you want to go to the next level, which is sort of the 8 figures, which is really what I'm looking for, you can't keep doing the same thing. I can't just keep hiring more people and delegating more people. You have to, as I understand it, I'm in the process of learning this, right? So I'm asking myself the great question, which I love, which is, well, who do I need to become in order to get to be that 8-figure CEO and have that 8-figure business? Because obviously, if I had the skills, if I had the knowledge, if I had the thing, I'd already be there. So I don't have that. So I'm in the process of acquiring those skills, hiring a coach and figure it out. But as I understand it, of what I've so far understood is in order to get to 8 figures now, you have to move to be able to work through people. So you now have to not delegate stuff to people and have them report, but actually hire people who can do it all on their own themselves. And it now becomes more like a talent acquisition and training more than actually just, you're working through those people. Now, the more and more of those people I can hire, the more we can scale. So I've hired a coach to get me there because, again, I think it's a shortcut, but you've got to improve your skills. You got to ask those questions. What books do I need to read? What coaches do I need to hire? What mindset do I need? What skills? Like all of that stuff. And that's kind of the fun process where I'm at today. And I'm looking forward to seeing not whether it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I want to just figure out how fast is it going to happen. Is this something I'm going to get to in the next 2 or 3 years? Is it something that's going to take me a decade? Like at that point, I don't know because I don't know.
Hello again. I have something special for you. If you are a 7-figure entrepreneur, or even just an entrepreneur who's aspiring to do big things, then you will really enjoy our 4 tips guide on how you can go from where you're at, whether it's scattered, chaotic, drowning, to something that's systematized, organized, and scaling. Just click the link below and we will send you this free guide that will transform not only your business, but you as a leader. So a lot of people, a lot of the businesses I've been under the hood, I think it can echo and affirm what you're saying, which is you can get to 7 figures and not have it and just do it through brute force. But moving beyond that and having time freedom and all of the freedoms you're really looking for when you build a business, it takes people and you have to learn to delegate. Then I have learned that there's a difference between delegating tasks and delegating authority. And I think in the 7-figure arena, it's delegating tasks. And so how did you, for the audience that is in that grouping, how did you go from a self-described control freak to somebody that could delegate?
I got, again, lucky, I guess, because I realized that I was just miserable. Like the pain, you get to a pain line. I think Dan Martell calls it a pain line. And so I said, look, after reading that amazing book that I know you've read, and hopefully a lot of your audience are, the Traction, right? The Gino Wick book, Traction. They talk about having an integrator, right? And so I said, I want to be the visionary. I need to go hire an integrator. And so I hired a couple of integrators because they didn't always work out. And that forced me to let go. And it was a very difficult thing for me to do, but I hired people that were experienced and knew more than I did. So I just literally let go. I just was like, let's just see what's going to happen. And it was rough and all that stuff. And it was just, I just let go. And it was just, I just had to have, I just wanted the pain to go away. I didn't want to be working all the hours and get stuck doing all these things that I shouldn't be doing. And so that's how it started. And then I've taken back the reins. I'm back to being the integrator. I'm back to taking the reins of CEO. But at this point, it already happened. So it's like, okay, well, I've already let go. I've already done that. I don't want to go back to being the control freak. So now I'm in the point where, like, okay, I've delegated most of the authority now to Bethany. So she kind of runs the day-to-day and we all have our roles. But I do want to make one distinction because I think there's one middle piece that I've implemented now, which helps in that middle part. So I think you're right. At the beginning, you do it all yourself. Then you hire people and you, like, to your point, you delegate tasks, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with delegating tasks is that you give them a task and then when they're done with it, they come back to you and they say, what's next or what do I do now? And then you give them another task. So they're still relying on you a lot.
Mhm.
I think the next step from that, which is again something that Dan taught me, was you start delegating outcomes. So don't delegate tasks, but delegate outcomes. Give them a clear vision of what the outcome is that you want to have. Give them a couple of roadmaps, like, okay, here's how we're going to measure this stuff, and then let them go figure out how to go do it. So you just got to be really clear on the vision of what the outcome is that you're doing. And if they come back to you for questions, have them come up with the answers. Like a lot of people, they come to you and say, oh, I don't know what to do. And it's like, well, I hired you to do that job. I don't want to do that job for you. So what are 2 or 3 options, viable options? Well, actually, let's go back. The first thing that I'm doing these days, let's identify what's the problem. Like your dad does a great job with this. Well, what are we trying to solve? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Number 1, that you came to me with. Great. Let's identify the problem. And then number 2, give me 2 or 3 ways that you think we could solve this problem. And then pick one of those. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, or no, maybe think about this. That way they'll start just figuring this out eventually they'll start figuring this out on their own, because they're like, well, if I go to Mauricio or if I go to Staci, they're just going to give it right back to me and tell me what the 3 things are. So let me think through those 3 things now. And then they think, oh, then I should just do this. And then they figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I think that's side of the next step for me is going from tasks to outcomes. And then the last step is to do it through authority and just really, hey, you're going to be in charge of this whole area of the business. And I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to hire it properly, give you obviously the vision of what it's going to look like. And then that, I believe, is how you get to the 8 figures. And again, not having done it, I don't feel like I've got the authority to tell people what the path is to get to 8 figures. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to watch this that already have 8 figures, and they may have a different way of doing it.
Yes. The more I see businesses, there's a lot of fundamentals, and then there's a lot of nuance. And if you're a service-based business versus a product,
right? Yep.
There's so much nuance.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you've evolved as a leader in terms of communication through this?
I don't consider myself a great leader. That's one of the things I'm working on. Like that's one of the skills that I really I'm working on, like a leadership thing. Because again, I've been working I'm in the business. So let me attack that from maybe a different angle, right? So there's all of these, you can call it a ladder or steps or phases of the business, right? So when you start, you're just doing everything, right? And so you're doing all the admin stuff, you're doing all the servicing, you're doing that stuff. But your first goal really should be to get out of the servicing, right? Which is what I did. That's the hardest one, I think. But once you get out of the servicing, so I was just focused on doing all the servicing. So we got out of that one. Then you got to start focusing more on sort of, in my world, you got to work on sort of sales and marketing, or just kind of the marketing part, right? Which is kind of where I'm at now as well. And then at some point you got to turn into being the leader, right? And that's where I think the 8-figure comes in too, because you're now leading the team versus delegating or doing it yourself. So I've just spent all my career either with my head in the sand doing the thing, or just recently coming up a little bit and started to delegate some work. But when you get to this last level, I don't know if it's the last level, but the next level where you have to work through people, that's where you have to be a good picker of talent. You got to go search for talent. And by the way, that's not going to be something you're going to find on Upwork. It's probably going to be a relationship that you get into, somebody who's already, maybe it's somebody who's like the COO of a really great company and you recruit them to be the CEO of your company. But then the key is the leadership part, right? Not only the leadership, which to me, I always thought of leadership of sort of, there's just look at me and follow me and do what I do. But what I've learned, and which I'm working on a lot these days, is it has to do more with really coaching your people, right? Dan harps on, this is my coach, Dan Martell, who's just a great guy. He harps on this all the time, which is like, we as entrepreneurs like myself, we spend so much time adding value and teaching. Like I do a lot of marketing. I do a lot of teaching. I do a lot of content, a lot of podcasts. I got my own podcast, I do a lot of videos. I'm out there doing content left and right. So I'm always trying to help the clients. I'm trying to help the community. I'm trying to help that. But I wasn't spending, and I still don't spend that much time coaching my team. Mm-hmm. And so that's, I think, part of the leadership thing, which is like, okay, well, let's coach the team up, right? So let's figure out a system, whether it's a weekly thing with the team where you're teaching. Yes, you want to keep teaching I want to teach my clients and my prospective clients, but let's teach the attorneys, let's teach the staff, let's coach them up, because if I can coach them up, that's going to help the business grow as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you read the book $1 Trillion Coach? I
have not.
I think you'll love it.
Will I write that one down?
Yes.
Or shall I just order it right now on Amazon? Well,
yeah,
I won't do it.
Get it.
But that's a great tip, by the way. If you ever hear a tip at a seminar or something, people tend to write down, oh, that's a great book, and they write it down. I don't know, maybe I don't remember who it was who taught me this, but I got taught, and I do this now all the time. If somebody recommends a book, if I'm on a podcast or something, I hear a book, I don't write it down. I go straight to Amazon, I order it. And if I'm traveling, it's great because by the time I get home from the travel, the book's already there. So that's a good little shortcut there, or hack about books. Just order it straight away from Amazon. Otherwise, you won't do it.
Yeah, you've evolved so much in 20 years. And another way that you've evolved is you're a husband and a father.
Yeah, that's the best part. That's my biggest success. Jim Rohn tells a great story about how he met his wife, and he said, I'm going to butcher it, but he said something like, I met this amazing lady, and then I promised her world travels and treasures and this and that, and she bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. And I felt like that's what happened with Heidi. It's like somehow I got her on board, and we have now two amazing little kids, two girls, 9 and, well, actually 10 now. She just turned 10. So 10 and about to turn 8. So 10 and 8. And that's why I do this. I mean, this is what really lights me up. I love being a father. And I'm really obsessed. Now that you pivoted to this, I'm really obsessed with this new concept, by the way. I don't think you and I have talked about this, so I'll share this for you for the first time. Mm-hmm. I've become obsessed for some reason, maybe not for some reason, about this concept of being like in the top 1%. But not most people think of top 1% like in money. I think, for example, there's somebody in this world that is the number one father. Based on the way I would value a father, somebody's number one. There's a ranking, and somebody's number one. And I don't know. I want to be like a top 1% dad. I want to be a top 1% husband, and there's like a ranking for that. I walk on the beach a lot, and so I'm like, I literally started to do the math. I'm like, how many people actually walk on the beach? At this, I was like 6 a.m. It's like literally at the first light. And I was just doing the math. There's 30,000 people here. So like, is it really 1%? No, there's probably about 80 people walking. Like, I'm in the top 1% of people who are out here walking on the beach at 5:30 in the morning or something. So I don't know why I've been obsessed with that. But yeah, that's one of my major life goals is again, how do I become the best father I possibly can? How do I become the best husband?
And I am watching you live it, though. Because we were recently both invited to a private speaker training with Andy Tanner, Blair Singer, and Tom Wheelwright.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And you're like, what date is it? And it was May 6th. I think that was the date. And you're like, yep. I'm not going. And I'm like, what? Like, why aren't you going? And he's like, it's my daughter's birthday. It's like, it's not even up for a discussion. It's non-negotiable. And it was epic, but you made the choice to be like, of the priorities between husband, father, businessman, personal development, you already had your priorities ranked, and it was not up for discussion. And I think, I've watched you do this, but I've watched people do it the other way, where an opportunity is so amazing, that shiny penny is so amazing that you'll negotiate your values. But you aren't doing that. And
it wasn't even a discussion. I mean, it wasn't even an option. Like that was already that, by the way, that was I got invited to 4 events that weekend. Mm-hmm. I got invited to speak at 4 different events. So that was actually the 4th time. It wasn't even like, oh, let me think about it. It's like I've already, even if I didn't have that value, I would have said yes to another opportunity. So I would have already had to say no, because I'd already would have said yes to another speaking gig. But it was always, that's my daughter's party. Like there's just, I'm just not available. Like I don't even. I'm surprised that that's not how everybody does. That's just the way it is. Like it's like there's no way I'm missing my daughter's birthday. Like no matter what.
Well, that might put you more in 1%, because people do. They build businesses to create this freedom, so they have time with their family, and they have financial freedom and geographic freedom, and then all of the opportunities start coming. Because when you have a business and you've done something successful, people are asking you left and right to go speak, be on their podcast, do all of these things. And it's easy to get caught up in that hustle instead of pre-deciding that, no, I'm going to be a 1% husband first and a 1% dad and then a businessman.
Yeah. One of the things people I think forget too is if you ask most people, they will say, well, why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for my freedom. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for this. And then they don't realize that they didn't ask for any of that. Like they didn't ask you to go do this and stuff. It's like you're just assuming you want to do that for them. What your kids really want is for you to be present. You want to be there for your birthday party. Same thing with your spouse, to be there. So nobody's asked. I mean, maybe there's some families where that discussions happen, but most of the time, nobody's asked you to go do the sleepless nights and disappear for 3 years to go build this. Like that's not what that's your vision for them. But yeah, I mean, that's just always been a really a non-negotiable when it comes to especially birthday parties or family trips or things that the commitments that you've already made to family.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been enjoying your evolution and your personal development and watching you go through the struggles and then have the grit and then also have the transformation on the end. So what does success mean to you?
I'm going to steal it again. I've used it all the time. It's my favorite definition of success, and it's a Jim Rohn quote. And I'll say it and then I'll unpack it because it's not a one liner where you're like, oh, okay. Jim says that success is the continual unfolding of the design of your own personal life and pulling it off. Meaning whatever success is for you, because success is not an amount, it's not a Ferrari, it's not a car, it's a, you have your definition of success, Staci, is way different. Though not way, it's different from mine, it's different from everyone, right? But if you have Jim used to say this, like if your dream is to retire at 65 and go retire in the woods and feed the squirrels, and you pull that off, you're a smashing success. So figure out whatever it is that you want to do in life. You want to be a great husband, a great father. You want to build a business. You want to do this. You want to do that. Or you just want to do no work or minimum, whatever it is that you want to do. If you can design it and then unfold that design as you go through life and actually pull that off, then you're a smashing success. And so that's what I do. That's why we are so goal oriented. I know you are as well. I have my goals. I have my, financial goals. I got my spouse goals. I got my fitness goals. I got all these goals. And if I can make progress and pull those goals off, then you're a smashing success, whatever it is that you're trying to pull off.
What goals are you most excited about right now?
Right now, my fitness goal actually right now, I'm actually going in the right direction. So I'm kind of pumped. I think I've made that mind shift, which is so hard. I think not losing weight, getting into shape is such a mindset. And I've made this is why I know I'm on the right track. I've made a lot of progress. And I'm measuring, I'm going to do my DEXA scans. I'm paying attention to my macros. I'm like lifting and all that stuff. I'm trying not to get hurt. Rob Lowe said that one time. He's like, what's your goal at the gym? It's like, at my age, it's just not to get hurt. And I'm like, it's so true because you get hurt lifting weights and then you're screwed for 3 weeks. But the reason I know I'm in the right mindset is that even though I've made a lot of progress, when I look in the mirror, I still like, what's going on? Why am I not where? So I think my thermostat has changed. And that's another concept we can probably spend days on. But like everybody has a thermostat that's set at a particular temperature, and you get these outside forces, and maybe your temperature goes up, but your level of personal development, your level of habits will pull that temperature back to its reading because that's where you're comfortable. But I think I've gotten that thermostat to shift now, where my now new normal is not what I have, and so it's just a question of me now to get back to that new setting. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm excited about that. I'm excited about building the business. And I'm really excited about how a family's going. I mean, the kids are growing up fast, but they're such amazing little girls, and we're just having a blast as a family. We're going on a family vacation here in July for 2 weeks. So looking forward to that. So all of that is kind of planned out. I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy, but we plan all this stuff out. I try and do one major thing every quarter with the family, and our next one's going to be in Chicago and in Wisconsin. So looking forward to that.
That will be so fun.
Yeah.
For me, health has always been like a keystone habit. So it's like the thing that affects everything else and helps me achieve business goals. And I know health for you was a fluid thing, and now it's like the thing.
Yeah, because the health thing for me, I could never make, and I'm starting to make a little bit better connection, but it's always like, I don't have time. It's like, I got to do this and to do the work. And I was never able to, and I'm not quite there yet, like associating like what you do, which is like, hey, if I take care of my health, then I'm going to be better a business person. I'm going to be a better friend. I'm going to be a better, husband. So I haven't quite gotten there, but I'm realizing obviously how important it is, because I do have a lot more energy now than I did before. And that's because of the workouts. And even if I don't have time, I try and make that extra effort to get the time. But I still struggle. Look, I struggle so much with discipline and all this stuff. And I wish I had that. There's Tony Robbins calls it a muscle. I don't know how you describe it, but he talks about this idea that when you make a decision, you just do it. Like, you don't question it. You don't argue with yourself. If you're going to jump into the cold pool, you just jump. You make the decision to jump and you jump. When the alarm goes off in the morning, you just get up. And I love to develop that skill or that muscle or whatever it is, where you just make the decision, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to go do this now, and you go do it. You don't start arguing, oh, I'm tired, or I'm hungry, or I'll do it later, or like all those arguments. If I can get rid of that, I think that's something else I'm working on these days.
I have a good motto for that.
Yeah.
I actually learned it when I was training for like bikini competitions and stuff. And we would have to do squat side lunges around the track, like 400 one way, 400 the other. And you get in your head because your legs are burning, you're sweating, you're like, this is terrible. And our motto was, don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes once you've already decided something, the struggle isn't the action, the struggle is your mentality. And if you get outside of your own head and just do it, the mechanics of your human can do it.
Or just start. So a lot of times it's like you start and then you realize, man, it took me I was thinking about it for 3 hours. It took me 18 minutes. I could have just done it.
Yeah, exactly. Now also set the timer, like 10 minutes, set the timer, race against the clock.
Yeah.
Well, I just love you and appreciate all that you've gone through in your life and all the wisdom and tiger stripes that you have earned. If people want to see you and your beautiful family, and his wife is an amazing photographer, where can they connect with you and follow you?
On social media, I spend most of my time either on LinkedIn, so just Mauricio Rauld, LinkedIn, and then I have a Facebook community called Real Estate Syndicator Community, where I think about 4,000 members now, and I spend a lot of time in there. It's kind of my virtual hangout spot. And then otherwise, YouTube is also a good place to find me. And I'll throw the Instagram thing. I started doing Instagram actually about in December, so 4 or 5 months into it. So if you're an Instagram person, give me a look up on Instagram, because I'm struggling over there. I don't know what I'm doing over there.
Go give me some love, comments,
love, and drop Staci's name though when you follow me, and we'll give you some love.
Yes. Well, I hope everyone who listened to this got tremendous value. We're all learning how to stay rooted as leaders and also get shit done. And so if this resonated with you, like, share, and tag Mauricio and I so we can connect with you online. Cheers, everyone.